everybody, and welcome to Northernland Looks at Oblitus. It's not Oblitus. It's not Oblitus. Don't even give me that. I know as people are, well, I got a degree in Greek history from the University of Vanderbilt. No, the movie trailer dude in the voice, who does the voice for the trailers as Oblitus. Coming February 27th to Steam. So don't give me that shit, okay? We got concrete proof one way or the other. It's not a Vagant situation. Anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. This is a 2D action RPG with a little bit of a Dark Souls inspiration. Very similar to another game, Apotheon, that came out a couple of weeks ago on PS4 via PS Plus as well as Steam. It's published by Adult Swim Games, who have a really actually great track record on Steam and have published a lot of cool stuff, and it's developed by Connor Ullman. Now, I'll admit I'm not familiar with anything else that Connor Ullman has done. Additionally, I want to add a little bit of disclosure here, which I did not expect to have to do until I actually looked at the credits for the game. But if I go down here, you can see that the music here is done by a fellow by the name of Josh Welchel, as well as some other individuals of whom I am unfamiliar. No offense to them. I was like, Josh Welchel, that name sounds familiar. Josh Welchel. Ah, okay. He did the music for Scrolls, which I found upon further research, which I thought was excellent, even though it's kind of been washed away by Hearthstone, I guess, at this point. That doesn't take away the fact that it's an excellent soundtrack. But also, we've been following each other on Twitter for like 4 years. Now, I can't remember the last time I've actually talked to him, but I think he was one of the first individuals that actually noticed my channel back when I started doing Meat Boy stuff. So we have a familiarity. We're at best casual acquaintances, but if you're the kind of person who gets their feathers ruffled by stuff like that, you deserve to know in advance so you can make an informed opinion about my biases or lack thereof. In any case, I'm going to do my best job to explain just what the heck is going on here. I hope I can get that mouse pointer just off in the corner, and hopefully you won't notice it anymore because I'm using the 360 controller. Again, this is a 2D action RPG, a little bit reminiscent of Dark Souls, and we'll talk about those mechanics, because I know that's a phrase that's lost all meaning in games criticism in the past few years because it's been used too often. But before we do anything, let's talk about why we're here in this world and the means of which we're actually going to be able to traverse and interact with our environment. We are basically placed in here without much it's kind of like in media res, you know. We don't really know what the heck is going on, but he says, like, you know, hey Harbinger, go kill the 4 bosses and then come meet me, you know, deep beneath the caves below, which I'm assuming is down here. So we kind of have this enigmatic air to the game, a mystery. We don't really know what's going on or why we're here yet, but I'm assuming that's the kind of thing you find out the more you play. Now, this is a game that is combat focused for sure, no question about it, and this is where the Apotheon comparison comes in. Now, Apotheon just came out, so I'm not accusing either game of being influenced by or ripping off the other one, but it is uncanny how similar they are. Now, I didn't do a video on Apotheon, but we did do a lot of discussion of it on the Roundtable podcast last week, so if you want some more background knowledge on that, you can feel free to do that. But basically, with left bumper here, I can look around in like a 270-degree arc, except for right below me, and, you know, point my shield at any incoming projectiles or attacks that might be coming. Apart from that, we have a stab with our spear, and we have a throw. So we have basically a projectile weapon and a melee weapon, but they're both the same. So if we throw our weapon, we can't actually stab with it. Now, we'll encounter some enemies here. These enemies are very easy. They'll die in one hit, so we'll just go for a throw there. There's 4 bosses in the game, and by beating those 4 bosses, I think that gives you the means of which to unlock the next basic stage of the game, which I'm assuming is probably the final stage. It doesn't seem particularly long, but what's kind of novel about it is that once you die, unless there's bonfire mechanics or something like that I have not noticed thus far, you're just done. You have to go do it all over again. So it's one of those games you pretty much have to beat in one shot, as far as I can tell. And again, I might be missing out on some kind of mechanic, but I don't think I am. If I did, or if I am, the tutorial has not done its due part in telling me that. But in any case, we're gonna traverse this way. I've only killed one of the bosses so far. It's a game that is on the challenging side, and that's not where the comparison with Dark Souls comes in. I know people are tired of, you know, oh, this game's hard, it's like blank meets Dark Souls. You know, that's not a fair comparison, nor is it really... You can't get up here, dog, come on. Nor is it particularly meaningful. The Dark Souls comparison is more in kind of like the world design, for one. You know, the levels that you encounter, they're not really procedurally generated, but there's a little procedural generation in terms of like the loot that you can get and the upgrades that you can get, because you do upgrade your weapon here as time goes on, or you can at least if you find the power-ups. And the fact that you end up repeating sections over and over and over and over and over again to get as good at them as you possibly can, so you actually have the necessary, you know, skills and momentum to get meaningfully through the game. Now, in Dark Souls, that manifests itself as mostly you're just memorizing, like, sections between bonfires. I don't know yet, but it may be the case that in Oblitus, you basically are memorizing the entirety of the game, which would be a very bold choice to put it lightly. But again, like Dark Souls, things seem kind of insurmountable. The first time I like came through this section of the game, I was like, oh man, this is like a long section. There's got to be like a save point or something coming up. I just spammed him down a little bit there. Oh, there is an upgrade over here usually. Let's see what we get. Poison Spear. When the spear hits an enemy, they will be poisoned. That seems pretty good, actually. But then once you actually figure it out, I mean, how long have we been playing on this run? You know, maybe 4 or 5 minutes? Like, that's the length of time that it takes to get through this once you've actually got it memorized. But it might take you a half hour or 45 minutes to actually get it memorized and become skillful enough that you can do it yourself. We are approaching the first boss, though. I should also point out that, like Dark Souls, it's kind of non-linear, and the game doesn't really give you much... That's our health, by the way, in the top left, if I didn't talk about that earlier. It doesn't give you much direction as to where you are supposed to go. So I'm just assuming that this is the right way to go. It's not like there's a Brady Games, you know, strategy guide or something that I can really draw from now. We've got to hit that glowing, like, orb on his back, in case you are not aware. And we did get hit by the spikes there, unfortunately. Yeah, it's not like there's any resources that I can really draw from in order to figure out where I'm actually, like, legitimately supposed to go. So I'm just kind of feeling it out on my own, which is really where the Dark Souls comparisons come in more for me, is kind of that sense of unfamiliarity. And it really is like a tone and atmosphere thing. So actually, like, this boss seems pretty difficult the first time you fight him. But after that, he's got a pretty set pattern, and if you just kind of hold your analog stick, assuming you're using that, in the one area, like the proper trajectory to actually get it killed, that'll work out for you most of the time once you learn, like, the 3 or 4 attacks he can do. He's not that hard, but getting to him can be difficult. You have obtained a power beyond your ability. Find me in the Hanging Furnace. So I don't actually know where that is, but we'll take this. Homing Spears. Spears will home towards enemies. And then we'll try to make some progress in our next section. So this next section here, it's not sight unseen, but I've never actually gotten very far in this section. But maybe now that I have Homing Tears, or too much Isaac, sorry. Maybe now that I have Homing Spears, as well as Poison Spears, I'll be able to succeed a little bit more easily here. Now, there's always these birds that come, like, dive-bombing down on us. I'm very afraid of the possibilities there. Let's talk about how I actually feel about the game, because, you know, we are going to die probably many times over the course of this video, but I'm doing all right so far, so we might as well strike while the iron is hot. In terms of the combat system, let's talk about the easy stuff first. Audio-visual. I think it looks... I don't necessarily want to say that I think this game looks good from a technical sense. You know, in games, criticism, there's always, you know, does something look good and does it look artistic? Does it look good? I think it looks fine. Let's put it that way. Apotheon had a little bit more of a unique kind of visual style to it, but I do like the atmosphere of this one as well. Kind of, I don't know, druidic or something like that. I'm the wrong guy to ask about stuff like that. Maybe Norse is another way that I might put it, with like these rune stones in the background or something like that. It's got a cool atmosphere and art design. Sometimes I do get a little confused about what's in the background, what's in the foreground. I'm not sure it 100% of the time does a great job of communicating kind of the visual language of the game. But for the most part, it's the kind of thing that is at worst a minor gripe. So I'm not going to sit here and complain about you know, anything like that for too long. Music, very, very good. The music is... Oh, can I get through here? I guess I cannot. I wonder if I hit those, like, I mean, this is another thing that's great about the game, is the sense of experimentation that you get from being like, can I do this? Can I do this? Oh, what's that enemy? It's one of the very few games outside of, you know, a specific genre. Hey, you can! I didn't know that, actually. It's one of the few games outside of a specific genre that has done a good job of actually inspiring genuine terror. Like, when you encounter an enemy and you're like, oh, there's no way I'm going to be able to deal with that enemy right now. It does a good job of that. Music is fantastic. Definitely a highlight. And I know that seems suspect now that I've mentioned that I do have a casual acquaintanceship with one of the people who's done the music, but that's something you can, you know, do due diligence on for yourself as well if you're interested. I think the music in the game does a fantastic job of setting this kind of like moody and dark tone to it. And the tone of the game is really one of the strong suits for sure, is the sense of like, I don't really know what I'm doing, but I'm having a good time learning what I'm doing as time goes on. So these artifact pieces, as we get more of those, we actually will be able to complete the artifact. I don't know what it does when we do, because that's one of the things in like the press release. It was like, what happens when you get all the artifacts? We don't know, but come on, we actually know. So I don't know if this is actually the proper way for me to go, but I'm assuming... Cool sound effect in this ladder. I'm assuming because the area is getting darker and there's spider webs that... Whoa! We're probably approaching some kind of spider-esque boss. So yeah, this is totally new to me. It also, you know, another comparison to make if you don't necessarily want to stick to the Dark Souls one might be La Mulana. You know how... I guess we don't go down that way. You know how in La Mulana... We go up this way? Oh, I guess we go up this way. You know how in La Mulana, you don't really know where you're supposed to be going, and you just kind of figure it out through repeated play? I wonder if this thing shoots at me. I'm a little scared about that right now. That's the same thing that happens in Oblitus as well. Oh, we got lucky to get the kill there. We can light our spear on fire, by the way, which will make it do more damage, as you see right there. You figure it out as you go, and you'll go one way and be like, oh, that was a big mistake. Like, I don't know what's at the bottom of this pit. Oh, you died? Come on. But now we know not to do that again. And of course, there's where the other Dark Souls thing comes in. I don't think the developer or the publisher is going to be mad that I'm comparing it to Dark Souls when it seems to so obviously wear it as an inspiration. Also, the world does kind of loop back on itself. So, like, I could probably get to that area through another section. I'm not 100% sure, but I've definitely been in that section with, like, the Donkey Kong Country-style catwalks. Not these ones, but the ones that were on the other world. I've been there before by coming in from the left side of the screen. So, it's got a real sense of experimentation and a kind of boldness to that exploratory element as well, which is cool. The combat... I do think the combat is a little bit of a weak point. And I mentioned this, and we all mentioned this, I guess, a little bit when we were talking about Apotheon in our roundtable podcast. It's competent, but I do think that it lacks some of the flair or some of the like mechanical satisfaction of something like, maybe I shouldn't say mechanical satisfaction, but like the methodical satisfaction of something like Dark Souls that is super slow, you know? In Dark Souls, you can't go in and button mash and achieve anything. And not every game has to aspire to that, you know, ideal, if it even is an ideal. But considering the kind of thematic similarities between the game, I was able to kind of succeed pretty early on. Like, on these guys, I'd probably do better consistently if I had a better idea of strategy and stuff like that. But I can kind of just go in and hack at their knees. And obviously with bosses and bigger enemies, you have to use a little bit more tactics. But I also just think that there's something kind of loose about it. Like, it doesn't feel as tight as something like a Guacamelee or a Mark of the Ninja or something like that. And I understand that those are different kinds of games than this is, but there's not much apart from Apotheon to really compare this to in terms of direct kind of contemporary. So I have to get outside of the genre, I think, to take a look at that. Now, it's not to say that the combat is bad. I really like, in contrast to Apotheon, I really like the fact that you stick with one weapon for what I think is the entirety of the game, at least, you know, in the amount that I've played so far. I've only ever used the spear. And I like the trade-off between being able to throw your weapon, but if you throw your weapon, you can't stab anymore. So this is giving us a downward airstrike. That loot is different every time. So now we have this attack that we can do right here. Not going to be too helpful against this boss, but yeah, I like the fact that you're not overloaded with weapons. So in Apotheon, a lot of the time I felt like I was just throwing the kitchen sink at the enemies. But in this, I feel more like this is my rifle, this is my gun, this one's for fighting, this one's for fun, right? Like I have a connection to my weapon, and I'm committed to learning how to use it as effectively as possible, especially against enemies that are a little bit harder. So we should have to beat the boss again, as far as I know, and yes, there they are. Again, this is the kind of game that, I don't know why I'm saying again, when this is, I think, the first time I've said this over the course of the video, but if you're the kind of person who hates replaying segments, maybe you didn't kind of get what people liked about Dark Souls and you think it's overrated or something like that, this is probably not, oh, that was such a stupid way to get hit. This is probably not going to be for you. Like, there is, you're going to be replaying sections you've beaten, not just sections that you haven't beaten. You're going to be repeating sections you've beaten over and over and over, unless I'm missing out on, like, the most obvious mechanic, in which case, like, I'd feel bad, but that's the risk of covering a game that's a little bit more minimalistic like this. Oh, I didn't die, but I am so freaking close. And, of course, that's the risk, is that, you know, you can cover these. Or, oh, yeah, I'm not dead? Holy shit. You can go through these sections, and then you beat them once, and then you fail on them the next time. So, it's really not about, like, being like, oh, I've beaten this boss. It's more like, you know, you've beaten this boss, alright, good, now beat this boss every time, over and over, and eventually you'll master it. We got pretty lucky to succeed there. We should get maybe some different kind of loot here, and then we'll go explore that environment that we were just in again. Long spear. Spear is longer and does 50% more damage. That seems really good, actually. So, I don't think the combat is necessarily a strong suit, but learning the patterns of the bosses has, well, the boss that I've encountered at least, has been fun so far, and it took me a long time. Like, the first time I fought him, I was like, oh, I will never be able to do this. And then, subsequently, as time went on, I realized that, you know what, actually, This is totally doable. And now I actually find that boss a little bit too easy. And I think it's that, you know, that feeling of being overwhelmed and then whelmed and then like, oh, this is something that I can do. You know, this is within my, damn it. This is within my skill bracket to do it. That's the kind of satisfaction that you get from the game. We're going to start it over again here. We don't necessarily have to do that same section over again. But yeah, I mean, this is the kind of game, I hate to say it this way, but prepare to be frustrated if you play it a lot because, I mean, that's part of the draw, I think. But maybe I'm just going in the wrong direction right out the bat, too. Maybe you're not supposed to beat that boss first. Maybe you're supposed to actually come over in this direction first. I haven't really tested it out. It strikes me as a really, really cool experience. Like, this is a game that I've had a really engaging time playing thus far because it's so novel, and it really does task you with figuring it all out for yourself, you know, which I think is a really interesting way to play games. And it's one of the things that I like so much about Dark Souls was that, I think we can break this, yeah. It's that feeling of being out of your depth, right? Like this is over my head, I've got to practice the shit out of this in order to figure out what's going on. So we'll try going this way instead and see what's up. These enemies are pretty easy, so maybe this is the proper direction to actually go, or maybe this is a proper direction to go. Farther rolling. Doesn't seem like the greatest upgrade, but I'll be happy with it. Music does change, and the environment changes as you get from environment to environment as well, or biome to biome, whatever you want to call it. That being said, there's kind of like one thing that's been on my mind. I'm not saying that Dark Souls, or what I'm about to say, is not me saying Dark Souls succeeds in spite of its difficulty, because I think most people would agree that doesn't make any sense. Let's try to block this. But if you're gonna play a game that requires a lot of finesse and a lot of practice, it has to be really, really good, and it has to make failure fun. And the question I'm grappling with is, whoa, what's going on? Did you see the screen darken there and kind of like come in? I'm a little scared about what's going on there. Okay. I'm not sure what the heck's going on with that black box on the screen, but I'm not sure if Oblitus totally hits that. I think that's just a weird visual bug, like as we were moving from environment to environment. I have had a good time thus far, and when I failed, and this is an important thing as well, I've never really felt like it's been the game's fault, right? I've always been like, oh, I can learn how to surmount that. That's extremely important, maybe even like the most critical thing for a game that's gonna have you fail over and over and over. Except for that time that I fell into the pit. But you know, every game like this has to have one moment like that, where you're like, hey, remember that time you fell in the pit? And you're like, yeah, okay. Wow, we were so young back then. Switch over to the other side here if we can. Oh, maybe I just have to tough it out. There are occasionally like visual fidelity things like that are a little weird, but I'm not totally sure if I'm convinced that Oblitus is going to be one of those games that, for me, is worth investing the necessary prerequisite amount of time in order to actually get to the level of mastery that's necessary to become skillful at it, you know? If Dark Souls had sucked, it wouldn't have mattered how hard it was, because people would have died like 5 times and then been like, alright, I'm done with this shitty game. And I'm not saying Oblitus is shitty by any stretch of the imagination. So it's, like I said, no. Okay, like I said, you know, it's really cool as well how the game kind of loops back around on itself. I'm just on the fence about whether or not it's going to end up being like that caliber for me, because that's the risk of making a game that has those elements of difficulty. Is it going to be? It has to be good. There's no getting around it, man. My health is getting eroded by these poison things very quickly. Sometimes you got to know when to hold them and know when to fold them, right? We're getting out of here. Sometimes the AI is not particularly intelligent and will just fall down, but that shit happened in Dark Souls all the time. Don't try to tell me there were no cheese spots in Dark Souls. Whoa, okay, I remember you. So this is like where we were. Maybe. So I should probably be a little wary about my platforming. You do sort of have the ability... Oh, I have that downward attack, don't I? No, that was last run? Okay. You do sort of have the ability to look where you're going. I guess I should be throwing at these guys. Come on. By the way, I should have mentioned this way earlier, but I've been wrapped up in talking about, like, I don't know, higher order, you know, cerebral things, as opposed to thinking with my brainstem. There are ways to heal, like heal reliably. I think you get a little HP back maybe when you... What's going on here? You see this thing? I think you get a little HP back when you encounter an enemy. But in addition to that, maybe I gotta probably hit this thing, right? Or There's got to be some way to get through here. I think you get some HP back when you hit an enemy, or when you kill an enemy. But you can find, like, bodies on the ground as well that will heal you. We haven't found any thus far over the course of the video. And I think that stuff is kind of... I think the positions for those are more or less set. But it requires, like, some exploration. They're rarely, if ever, just, like, in the way. So I don't know where to go here, actually. That's probably the wrong way. But yeah, so it might sound like I have a mixed opinion on Oblitus. And I do have a mixed opinion, to be fair. You can't go this way, okay. You can sneak up on enemies sometimes, so I'm disappointed I was unable to do so there. But it's not a mixed opinion like this is sort of good, sort of bad. It's more of like a respect mixed with kind of like a question mark thrown in. It's like, I think that this is kind of awesome, but I'm not sure if it's quite awesome enough to live up to its own ambition. That's such a weird thing to say. Oh, Jesus. It's such a weird thing to say, but this is a very interesting game that is this the way I came up? I can't remember now. It's a very interesting game, and I'm glad to have played it, and I'm really interested to see what other people think of it, because, you know, look, I would never have wanted to be the first guy reviewing Dark Souls, and I mean that sincerely. This was the way I came. Oh, geez, they found me. I might have been the guy who, you know, went to the graveyard like 50 times, and then died 50 times. Jesus. And was like, I don't get it. They don't tutorialize the game well enough. But because other people got to it first, I was able to say, oh, you know what? There's going to be hard times in the beginning, and then I'll figure it out, and then I'll understand the true majesty. So it is, another thing with this is I'm kind of basically like, I don't know if my particular, you know, way of looking at games, taking a couple of hours right off the top of them, I've played about 90 minutes of this thus far, is really suitable for games like this that might be a little bit more of a slow burn, which makes it even more of a compliment that I'm having a good time with the game so far, and I think it is good. I'm not going to say anything. Oh, I let myself get poisoned and will probably die. Ooh, I lived. That's why I'm not going to say, like, you know, it's a game that gets, it falls under its own ambition or something like that, because I think that's a bullshit criticism to throw out that is super nebulous. But I do I want to take a wait-and-see approach and wait for other people whose opinions I respect to play this, and then if they're like, oh, this is something truly special, then I'll be like, you know what? I'll give it its due time. For now, I think it is, it's not a mixed opinion. I think I can hit this thing and it'll cause like a platform to come out or something like that. Sometimes this does work. No? Okay. I realize that what I'm saying here might not necessarily be particularly helpful. People are probably just like, oh my god, just tell me if I should buy it or not. Well, the answer is, as usual, maybe you should, maybe you shouldn't. If you're the kind of person who's open to games like this, and I know, you know, assuming you're watching this channel, a lot of you have probably watched me play Dark Souls and you're maybe into stuff like that, then I would encourage you to maybe give it a look-see and watch other people play it and see if they echo my opinion, and then, you know, spend your hard-earned money as you see fit. Maybe we come down here instead? Don't fall, motherfucker. Don't fall. Have I been this is where I started? I really could benefit from a map, but that's on me. Please tell me I'm not just coming... Oh, geez! That's, well, it must be kind of a new area then. Or at least I left an enemy alive down here. Oh, that's healing! Okay, we can do this. I think that means I'm off the beaten track, but dude, that's huge. I wonder if I somehow respawn there now. I kind of want to die just to see. Oh, we can come down that way? Just stab him. Just freaking stab him. Oh my god. He was down here. How'd you get down there? I can't get down there. I don't think it's in our best interest to jump off this. But anyway, I'm gonna play until I die here. I'm really interested to see. I would love to see like speedruns of this game. And I know that seems a little bit premature considering it just. I mean, I'm not gonna say it just came out because it's not even out yet. But that's even crazier. I should not have fallen directly off, but you know, again, exploration is one of those elements that plays a role in the game. I think we've already been down here. I'm not totally sure though. I've gotten myself a little bit lost, which is again a feeling that I think the game is trying to evoke. And more power to it for doing so. Oh yeah, I remember coming up this way. So I guess just, you know, that's my, like, take-home thoughts on Oblitus, is that it's maybe the most interesting game that I'm not 100% gonna recommend right off the cut here, but dare we? I really don't think we should. Oh, okay. So you can just fall, like, straight off the top then. We're going way down here. I think this might be a new area. I'm not saying we should be here. But is this the way we started? Did we start, like, way back here, and this is where we killed that bird, and now we're back to this area? I think it is, because that's the forest biome. Anyway, long story short, you should be able to tell by now that I don't know what the heck I'm doing in Oblitus. But we're back at the spawn point, hilariously enough. If you come down here, by the way, you will just take damage over time until you die, which I think is indicative of the fact that you should not be down there that early. It's got a little bit of a VVV thing going on with the way you traverse the environment as well, but it's a pretty, you know, superficial conversation to be had there. Anyway, this is Oblitus. I like it. I like it in its design. It's ambitious. Combat has a 100% wowed me, but it's a complete package, and I think, you know, it strikes me as a game that is very consistent with its design vision. And that's not, you know, me just trying to use some highfalutin backhanded compliment that is actually in reality an insult. But it strikes me as the kind of game that is not for everybody, but for the kind of person who's down with this, like, minimalistic style. I think you might find yourself getting your money's worth here, and I think that there just might be, beyond the bounds of my own ability to comprehend what the heck is going on, there just might be a particularly special game here for those who are willing to invest the time and the energy and the focus necessary to get to that point. But in any case, again, I have no idea how much this costs because it was not listed in the press release, and even though the Steam page is up, there is no price listed on it, so you can go do your own due diligence on that if you're interested. As always, there will be a link in the video description below to pick it up if you are interested. If you are, well, you know, that's on you. That's not to say that it's a mistake or anything like that. It's just I accidentally got out of my own muscle memory with respect to my outro. And of course, if you enjoyed the video, click the like button. It helps out a great deal. And of course, subscribe if you want to see more in the future. First impressions like this, that is. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.